accepting, what do they grok, and what is it, is this completely, they don't have a clue?
That's a great question. The challenge is, Brent Hoberman earlier said, you know, if you're going to make something, make sure it solves a problem. And the thing about a lot of the social software applications is it actually solves a problem. Anybody who's worked for a large corporation understands this concept of silos. Division X doesn't talk to Division Y, and country Z doesn't talk to country A, and that makes companies unbelievably inefficient. So when McKinsey did a survey last summer, and they said, which of these social software thingy-bobs are really interesting? Because you gotta understand that outside of this room, there's a whole universe of senior executives who've never actually heard of a blog, or a wiki, or all of the variations. They said, for employee discussions and employee collaboration, 75% were really interested. For interface with customers, 70%. For interface with suppliers, 50%. They like this stuff. They're really interested, but there are barriers to making it happen. Part of the barriers has to do with you don't always have senior evangelists, people who really grok to it. A firm like Leclerc, which is one of the largest hypermarchés grocery store on steroid chains here in France, their CEO has a big blog, has had for several years, but he is still an exception to the rule. The big tech companies in Europe, let's say an SAP or maybe a Siemens, those guys embrace blogs internally. They embrace social networks to work with their developers. A firm like ABB, one of the great big construction companies, they use them sort of gingerly to figure out how they can manage knowledge. But it's tough, it's very slow. And one of the reasons it's slow is the discussion we're having here. If my son is on Facebook, what the hell am I doing there? If I'm on Facebook and MySpace and the 3 other places, how do I, as a company, decide which one of those platforms to embrace, or do I go and create my own? Some of the more other examples that were really interesting is a firm called Dresner Kleinberg Benson, which is a bank. And most banks are really slow for this. But their head of IT, who's now the head of design and is one of the participants here, JP, got them very involved in things like wikis and blogs and social networks. And what you started to see was at a meeting, used to be that you'd say, if you were having a meeting, you send around in an envelope the agenda. I remember that, you get a little thing in your in tray. And then you'd send around the agenda in an email. And then you'd send around an Excel sheet, because it allowed you to track the to-dos and who had to do what. Well, gosh, there's this thing that's called a wiki. And all of a sudden, their meetings, which used to take an hour and a half, that part, which is just the update, gets consolidated to 10 minutes. And that's an enormous savings. More simple implications and some more simple implementations like that will accelerate all this. And that's why I think also as Google does something like Open Social, as you start to work with companies to integrate that, that will also help this acceleration.
Okay.